What happens when a self-made cafe owner walks into one of his own shops and hears a waiter call a customer trash? He freezes. Graham Avery had built his cafe chain from a single food truck in Portland. Now, 13 years later, there were 19 storefronts across 3 states. But lately, something felt off. Sales were steady, but customer reviews at the Westlake Cafe in Seattle had taken a dip. Comments about attitude, rude staff, and unwelcoming vibes kept showing up. He didn't want to rely on vague reports or filtered updates from the district manager. He needed to see it for himself. No clipboard, no suit, just a hoodie, jeans, and 2 days' worth of beard. Nobody at Westlake had met him before. He'd never been to this location, and turnover had wiped out any early hires. So he booked a cheap motel down the road, threw on a beanie, and walked in during the Thursday lunch rush. The place looked sharp. Clean floors, soft jazz playing, warm lighting. He stood in line behind a woman in her 50s, wearing a faded green coat and carrying a canvas tote. The cafe's chalkboard menu hung above the counter. "Next," called a waiter, barely looking up. The woman stepped forward. "Hi, just a small coffee and a blueberry scone, please." The waiter raised an eyebrow. "You sure you can afford that?" Graham froze. "What?" the woman asked, confused. "I mean, it's not cheap," the waiter said, loud enough for the people in line to hear. "Maybe try the free samples at Trader Joe's down the street." A couple behind Graham laughed awkwardly. The woman's face flushed. She fumbled with her wallet, words caught in her throat. Graham stepped forward. "I'll cover it," the waiter turned. "What?" I said. "I'll pay for her order. Ring it up." The waiter, tall, mid-20s, with a slicked-back ponytail, gave a lazy shrug and tapped at the screen. "Whatever." The woman whispered a soft thank you, eyes wet. Graham handed over a $10 bill and took his order number. The woman took a table in the corner, back straight, pride intact. Graham sat near the window and watched. The staff looked bored. No smiles. Orders were barked out, not called. A younger guy behind the counter moved fast, but the rest barely tried. Customers came and went, most not even thanked. 15 minutes in, a man walked in with a delivery bag. "Mobile order for Martin." The same waiter pointed at a to-go shelf. "If it's not there, it's not ready." "Figure it out." The delivery guy checked the receipt again, uncertain, and stood there. Graham saw the barista, short, stocky, maybe early 20s, catch the exchange and quietly walk over to help. She found the right bag, double-checked the name, and handed it over with a smile. "Thanks," the delivery guy said. "No problem," she replied. "Sorry for the wait." Graham looked at her name tag, Fiona. He stayed another hour watching. Fiona was the only one consistently polite. She greeted people, smiled at kids, even wiped down tables when no one else would. Graham finally got up and walked out, heart pounding. He didn't confront anyone, yet he needed more time. But that waiter, the way he humiliated that woman, that wasn't just rude, that was poison, and it was spreading. He went back to his motel, pulled out his notebook, and wrote down everything. Faces, names, moments. Tomorrow he'd return, but not as a customer. He had a plan. Graham showed up early the next morning, just as the cafe unlocked its doors. He wore a gray zip-up hoodie, black jeans, and a name tag that reads Scott. The district manager had helped arrange a last-minute trial shift for a new temp barista, an identity Graham had created 2 days earlier through a staffing agency he quietly owned under a different name. No one at the Westlake location had any reason to look deeper. They were short-staffed and running behind. They needed help. The morning air inside still smelled like bleach and cold metal. Fiona was already behind the counter, tying her apron with one hand and adjusting a stack of pastry boxes with the other. She glanced up briefly. "You the new guy?" "Yeah, Scott," she nodded and gestured toward the back. "Aprons are in the bin next to the sink. Grab one that fits." No welcome speech, no orientation, just move. He stepped into the narrow prep area. A second barista, tall with a buzz cut and earbuds in, nodded at him but said nothing. Fiona handed him a rag and pointed at the espresso machines. "Wipe those down before we open. And check the milk fridge, someone keeps leaving the oat cartons open." Graham got to work. The rag was damp from the night crew. He could feel the dried milk crust flaking off the steamer wands as he scrubbed. The fridge door creaked, and sure enough, 2 oat milk containers sat open, one nearly full, the other nearly empty. Neither was labeled with a date. By 7:30, customers were already trickling in. The ponytailed waiter from the day before, name tag now clearly visible. Rory showed up 15 minutes late, holding an iced latte from somewhere else. Traffic was garbage, he muttered as he walked in, tossing his coat onto a stool behind the register. Fiona didn't even look up. You live 4 blocks away. You don't know what I deal with, he said, rolling his shoulder like he'd just returned from war. Graham stepped up beside Fiona to help with the first wave of orders. She moved quickly, her hands steady, her eyes flicking between screens and cups. But the tension in her jaw was unmistakable. She didn't trust anyone to keep up, and it showed. A middle-aged man in a blazer ordered a cappuccino and a gluten-free muffin. Rory tapped the screen with one hand and scrolled through his phone with the other. Do you want a bag or just gonna fumble it out the door like last time? Rory said without looking up. The man blinked. No bag's fine, suit yourself. As the man walked away, Graham leaned over. He talked to customers like that often. Fiona kept her voice low. Only when he's awake. The morning rush swelled. Graham pulled shots and steamed milk while Fiona handled most of the register traffic. Rory did little except announce names, often mispronouncing them, then laughing to himself. At one point he called out Brenda when the sticker clearly read Brianna. When she came up to collect her drink, he said, "Close enough. You'll live." By 10, after the first wave died down, Graham caught a moment with Fiona near the sink. That guy Rory, has anyone talked to management about him? She hesitated. Danny tried, got written up for creating conflict. After that, we just stopped bothering. Danny, he was the closer, quit 2 weeks ago, couldn't take it anymore. Graham nodded slowly. What about the shift lead? She gave him a tired look. There is none. Rory was supposed to be temporary, then just stayed. No one's officially in charge. That explained the lack of structure. No one giving direction, no one accountable. Before he could respond, the door opened and a group of 4 high school students walked in, 2 girls and 2 boys, still in backpacks. They stood near the pastry case, chatting and pointing at options. Graham moved to the register while Fiona finished a latte. Rory sauntered over, looked at the group, and sighed. Let me guess, one of everything and pay with coins. The group went quiet. One of the girls stepped forward. Can I get a caramel cold brew and a lemon bar? Rory pressed a button. Sure. You want a receipt so you can show your parents where their money went. Graham's hand clenched around the rag in his pocket. The girl looked genuinely confused. I'm sorry. Nothing. Just hurry up. People are waiting. There was no one behind them. Graham stepped forward. I've got this order. Rory rolled his eyes. Cool, I'll go take my 5. You've been here 2 hours. I'll take it now anyway. He walked into the back without waiting for a response. Fiona bit the inside of her cheek. You see it now? Graham nodded once. Yeah. I see it. The rest of the day confirmed what he already suspected. Rory did the bare minimum, spoke to customers like they were beneath him, and left the heavy lifting to everyone else. Fiona worked nonstop, but there was no support structure, no one to back her up. Orders piled up during lunch, and she still found time to refill napkin dispensers and take a moment with a crying toddler whose mom was apologizing profusely. At one point, a delivery driver came in to drop off a crate of dairy. Rory stood by the register, watching as Fiona lugged it toward the fridge. You know, he said, arms folded, that's not really your job. She didn't answer. Graham stepped in. Then whose job is it? Rory shrugged. Not mine. By 3, Graham had seen enough. He caught Fiona near the back, drying her hands. Hey, he said quietly, can you do me a favor? She glanced over. Depends. Can you keep an eye on the front for 5 minutes? I need to have a word with someone. She tilted her head. You're not just a temp, are you? No, she exhaled, long and slow. Figured. Graham walked into the back room where Rory was leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone. Rory. What? Graham shut the door. I'm Graham Avery. I own this place. Rory snorted. Yeah, sure. Graham pulled out his wallet and laid a company card on the counter. Rory's face changed. You're done, Graham said. What? You're done here, this moment. You can grab your stuff and go. You're serious, dead serious. I've been here longer than anyone. And that's the problem. You've had time to get better. You chose not to. You mock customers, you dump work on everyone else, and you treat this place like it's beneath you. I won't have it. Rory looked around the room like someone would step in. No one did. Fine, he muttered. Whatever, it's not like I need this job. I agree. He left without another word. Graham returned to the floor. Fiona looked up briefly. He nodded once. Thank you, she said, barely loud enough to hear. Graham jumped in behind the counter again. No big speech, no announcement. Just work. As the afternoon wore on, the cafe moved more smoothly. There was still a lot to fix, but for the first time all day, the air felt lighter. He wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Saturday morning came colder and wetter than the day before. Graham arrived just after opening, this time without the hoodie. Still dressed plainly, but no longer hiding. He stepped behind the counter with the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needed permission to be there. The team was thinner than yesterday, just Fiona and the barista with the buzz cut, whose name turned out to be Devon. A college student, quiet but sharp, who moved like he was solving puzzles in his head. Fiona gave a small nod of acknowledgement when she saw Graham walk in. Nothing more. She was already elbow-deep in prep, organizing pastry trays while wiping down the toaster's crumb trays. He grabbed the broom without being asked and swept behind the counter. No one said a word about Rory's absence. The orders kept coming, and the silence between them was filled with the sound of espresso shots pulling and milk foaming. Around 9, the district manager, Denise, showed up unannounced. Tall with a blazer that looked like it hadn't seen a coffee stain in its life, she walked in carrying a clipboard and a coffee from a competitor. "Where's Rory?" she asked, stepping behind the counter without washing her hands. Graham didn't answer. Fiona glanced sideways. "He's gone." Denise stopped. "Gone? I let him go," Graham said without turning from the espresso machine. "You let him?" She blinked. "You're the temp." "I'm the owner." Denise's jaw tightened. "You can't just—" "I can, and I did." She took a step back, adjusting her clipboard. "We had no documentation, no write-ups. That exposes us." Graham turned to face her fully. He humiliated customers in front of other guests. He refused to do his job. He created a hostile environment for the rest of the team. That exposes us. Denise hesitated, then lowered the clipboard slightly. "I wasn't aware it had gotten that bad." "That's the problem," Graham said. "You should have been." Fiona kept her eyes on the pastry case, but Devon had stopped grinding beans, his hand resting lightly on the hopper. Denise shifted her weight. "So what now?" Graham crossed his arms. "Now you help fix it." "I don't work shifts, you do today." Denise stared at him, but he held her gaze. After a moment, she pulled off her blazer and folded up her sleeves. By mid-morning, the cafe was packed. The line curled near the door, and the hum of conversation filled the air. Denise fumbled with the register at first, clearly out of practice, entering items twice or forgetting to apply modifiers. Fiona helped without comment, guiding her without making a show of it. "Would have been good if I'd had a heads up," Denise said under her breath as she handed off a receipt. Graham leaned toward her. The customers didn't get a heads up either, and they dealt with worse. She didn't reply, but her posture shifted slightly. Less defensive, more focused. Later, a man in his late 40s walked in wearing a delivery uniform. He looked around for a moment, then approached the counter. "You guys still doing interviews for the open spot?" Fiona looked at Graham, unsure. He nodded. "You got a name?" "Carlos. My cousin told me you might be hiring. I've done barista work before, mostly evenings." Graham extended a hand. "You free to trial for an hour?" Carlos blinked. "Right now, no better time." Fiona handed over an apron from under the counter. "Hope you're quick on your feet." "Always," Carlos said, tying the apron around his waist. In the next hour, Carlos proved himself useful. He wasn't fast yet, but he paid attention, asked questions, cleaned without being told. When a tray of drinks tipped slightly on the edge of the counter, he caught it before it spilled. Graham pulled him aside afterward. "You want a week-long trial, paid starting today?" Carlos grinned. "Absolutely. Good, we need people who care." As the lunch wave built, Denise pulled Graham aside near the back fridge. "I owe you an apology," she said. "You do." "I relied too much on reports. I thought numbers told the full story. They don't." "No, they don't." She paused. "I'll start doing weekly visits. Real ones, quiet ones." Graham nodded. And I want a new hiring process, background checks, yes, but also trial shifts. Let's see how people treat strangers and stress. Understood. They returned to the front. A woman with 2 kids came in next. One of the boys was in a wheelchair, the other holding a picture book. Fiona noticed immediately and cleared a low table near the window. "Room for wheels here," she said gently, stacking chairs without being asked. The mother gave a grateful smile. "Thank you." Carlos stepped up to take their order, speaking slowly but without condescension. The boy in the chair pointed at the menu board. "Strawberry smoothie," Carlos nodded. "Coming right up." Graham watched all of it. No one asked for praise. No one performed. They just did the right thing. In the lull after lunch, he caught Fiona in the back, washing a pitcher. "You didn't have to stay this long," he said. "You were off an hour ago." She shrugged. "Would have felt weird leaving while it was finally working." He smiled faintly. "You ever think about managing?" She wiped her hands on a towel. "Not here, not before. Think about it now." She looked at him, unsure whether it was a real offer. "I mean it," he said. "You've been holding this place together without the title. If you want it, it's yours." With pay to match, she leaned against the counter. "I'd need backup, can't do it alone." "You won't have to," she nodded slowly. "All right, then yeah, I'll take it." Carlos stepped in from the front. "There's a guy asking for the owner. Says he's a regular." Graham stepped out and saw an elderly man with a flat cap and a thick coat standing near the register. "You the owner?" the man asked. "I am. I used to come here every Saturday with my wife. We stopped a while back. She passed. But I came today, and this place," he looked around, "feels like it used to. Warm." Graham swallowed. "Thank you, that means a lot." The man nodded once, then turned to go. Fiona came up beside him. "You okay?" "Yeah," Graham said softly. "Better than I've been in a long time." The cafe wasn't perfect. There were still shifts to fill, new hires to train, and systems to rebuild. But something had shifted, not because of policies or slogans. Because people who cared had been given space to act, and the ones who didn't were no longer in the way. He didn't need to hide behind a hoodie anymore. The truth was better in plain sight. By Monday morning, the changes had begun to settle into routine. Graham returned to the Westlake Cafe just before sunrise, this time with a clipboard not for show, but because there was real work to do. The goal wasn't to overhaul everything overnight, it was to set a foundation that could hold. The staff was lean again, just Fiona and Carlos covering the morning rush. Devin had class until noon, and Graham had arranged for a part-time hire from another location to fill in later. Still, it was tight. Fiona had only clocked out 10 hours earlier. Her eyes were heavy, but her focus didn't waver. Carlos worked with quiet urgency, checking labels on the milk jugs and calling out drink orders clearly without raising his voice. Graham stayed out of their way, instead taking notes on the layout behind the counter. The workspace was too cramped, forcing baristas to shuffle constantly. There was no logical flow from espresso machine to handoff counter, and the pastry shelf still required crouching to restock. These weren't things he'd ever noticed on a spreadsheet. An hour into the shift, the register jammed. Fiona tried clearing the receipt roll, but the screen froze mid-transaction. Graham stepped in. "We've needed a new POS for months," Fiona muttered, tapping the screen again to no response. He pulled his phone from his back pocket and sent a message to the tech coordinator. "You'll have one by Friday." Fiona gave a slight nod. That's the first time anyone said that and meant it. Another customer approached the counter, an older woman wearing a heavy scarf and pushing a walker. Carlos stepped forward immediately, adjusting the pastry display so she had room to maneuver. "Take your time," he said gently. Graham watched as she ordered tea and a croissant, her hand shaking slightly as she pulled out her wallet. Carlos waited patiently, never rushing her. After she left, Graham caught up with him near the sink. "You've got a good instinct for people," he said. Carlos shrugged. "My mom's got arthritis, used to get flustered when people rushed her in stores. I guess I just pay attention. You want to stay on longer than a week?" "Yeah." "Definitely?" "Done." The cafe quieted for a stretch, and Graham stepped into the back to review the staff schedule. It was still running thin. He needed at least 2 more reliable part-timers, maybe 3 if they wanted to give Fiona proper days off. He leaned against the counter, Scanning resumes from the digital folder his assistant had compiled. Halfway through, Denise walked in, holding a slim laptop and a paper cup she'd filled herself from the back sink. "I've been reviewing the other locations," she said. Westlake isn't the only one slipping, just the loudest. Graham didn't look up, because here people finally said something. "If you're planning to go undercover again, you should let me loop in HR first. Some of the managers won't take it well. If they're doing their jobs, they won't have anything to worry about." Denise hesitated. "You're not wrong, but this approach only works if it leads somewhere long-term. Otherwise, it's just theater." Graham turned to face her. "I'm not interested in theater. I'm interested in truth. And the truth is, we haven't been paying attention. We got too big too fast. We built a brand instead of a culture." Denise closed her laptop. "Then we start again." From the floor up, they returned to the front just as a woman with a catering form walked in, mid-30s, business attire, clearly in a rush. Fiona stepped forward to greet her, but the woman's eyes narrowed. "I submitted this order 2 days ago. I was told it would be ready at 9. "It's 9:30. Fiona opened the register system. "Let me check the order number." The woman cut her off. "I don't want apologies. I want my food." Carlos stepped in, scanning the prep shelf. "I think I saw it labeled in the fridge." "Let me double-check." The woman crossed her arms, tapping her foot. Graham walked around the counter. "I'm the owner. I'll make sure we get this right." For a moment, the woman's posture shifted. "I'm catering for a charity event. I can't show up with nothing." "Understood," Graham said. "You'll have what you need, and we'll refund half the order as an apology." Fiona looked up, surprised. Graham nodded to her, and she returned to the screen without a word. Carlos came back with the labeled bags. "Everything's here: sandwiches, cookies, bottled drinks. Looks like it was prepped last night, just not pulled." The woman took the bags, still irritated but calmer now. "If this happens again, I'll go somewhere else." Graham nodded. "It won't." After she left, Fiona exhaled sharply. "That order wasn't in the usual queue," Carlos added. "It was logged under special events, not pickups, easy to miss." Graham made a note on his clipboard. "We'll fix the labeling system, clearer categories, redundancy for large orders." The afternoon passed steadily. Graham held a quick meeting with the team during a lull, standing near the register. No chairs, no break room, just honest talk. "We're rebuilding this place for the long haul," he said. "That means more support, better tools, and real leadership. Fiona's stepping up as manager. She'll have hiring authority and control of the schedule. If something's broken, tell her. If she needs help, she'll tell me." Carlos asked, "Are we getting new uniforms? These aprons are rough." Graham smiled. "You'll vote on the new ones this week." Devin returned from class around 2 and picked up the afternoon shift. Graham stayed another hour, observing quietly. Devin and Carlos moved smoothly together, while Fiona trained a new part-time hire from a nearby location. Denise reviewed inventory logs in the back, finally seeing the chaos behind the clean counters. At the end of the shift, Graham gathered the team by the front window, where the last rays of sun reflected off wet asphalt. The café was quiet again, just the hum of the dishwasher in the back and the clink of ceramic mugs being stacked. "You all held this place together when no one was watching," he said. "That's hard, it's thankless, and it matters more than you know." No one spoke right away. Fiona folded a rag into her apron pocket. Carlos leaned on the counter. Devin zipped up his jacket. "You're not just employees," Graham continued. "You're the reason this place has a future." Fiona met his eyes. "We just want to be treated like we matter." "You do," Graham said. "And you will." He gathered his things and stepped outside. The air was cool, the sidewalk still damp. Cars passed slowly on the street, their headlights flickering in the puddles. He looked back once through the window. Fiona was wiping the counter. Carlos was laughing at something Devin said. Denise was gone, probably already on a call planning the next steps. The café didn't feel fixed. It felt alive, and that was enough.